Now we're going to have a look at the second category of Flash preferences, ActionScript. These preferences influence the way in which we work in the Actions panel. So I'll cancel this, and by default the Actions panel is down here at the bottom. If it's not visible, choose Window and Actions. You can also access the ActionScript Preferences area directly from the Actions panel by hitting the Options button here and choosing Preferences. And we're back in the same spot. Now the first option up here is Editing, Automatic Indentation and Tab Size. If you've had anything to do with ActionScript in the past, or just about any scripting language, you've probably noticed that it's commonplace for scripters to indent certain lines of the code to offset them from the rest. And in Flash, you can have the program do it automatically, or you can do it yourself. And you can set the number of spaces that a certain line is indented by. Now you can also enable or disable code hints and also set a delay of up to 4 seconds. What are code hints? Well, let's go back to the Actions panel and have a look. If I turn Script Assist off and start typing parent and a full stop, you'll see an options box pop up. You can choose from any one of these. Double click to select. Now we'll start over again, and we'll turn code hints off. Try the same thing again, and nothing pops up. This is simply Flash trying to help you out by offering a number of choices, likely choices, that designers will use most of the time. Next is the font. This is simply the font that you see in the Actions panel. By default, it's Courier New, and I never change that. Set a font size, and you can also turn on dynamic font mapping. Now what this simply does is ensure that all the characters are available in the font that you select. So if you select a strange font up here, or even a different language, Flash will dynamically check as you go to make sure that all of the scripting characters are available in that font. In my mind, the best approach is to keep the font at default, unless you absolutely have to, and keep the Use Dynamic Font Mapping option turned off, because this will slow down your coding. It takes processor cycles for Flash to continually check and make sure that all of the characters are available. The next two options deal with the importing and exporting and opening and saving of external scripts. You can see that under Open Import we have UTF-8 encoding or default encoding. Now this is a fairly advanced option, and it deals with the encoding method that your script, the text in your script, is encoded in when sent to, say, another machine or another application. UTF-8 uses the Unicode method, which is enabled by default, and it's the most common. Or you can change it to default, which uses the encoding method currently on your own machine. If you don't understand this yet, don't worry too much, because it's fairly advanced and we'll be covering it in later VTC titles. Next we have Reload Modified Files. Sometimes when you're working with external ActionScript files, those are files that are not contained in the actual Flash file you're working on, it's possible for someone else to open up the external file at the same time and modify it. Now if you're making changes and you export, you'll overwrite all the changes that this other person has done. So by default, if an external file has been changed, Flash will let you know. It'll say, hey, someone else has changed this file. Do you want to reload it? You can set it to automatically reload, never reload, or the recommended option prompt. Next is syntax colors. You can turn this off to have all of the text in your ActionScript window the same color, or you can turn code coloring on, which can help you debug your scripts. It can also help you write them. And you can choose colors for all the different little snippets of ActionScript that you create. Finally, we have language, and again, this is very advanced. You probably won't need to deal with this just yet. This modifies the class path of a document, and again, we will be covering this in later VTC courses. Now, as I mentioned before, you may not understand all of these options, especially if you've never used ActionScript before. Later on in this course, we're going to be devoting an entire section to action scripting using the most common ActionScript commands in Flash. Now, my suggestion would be that when you get to the end of that section, skip back to this section again and just review. And that brings us to the end of this lesson.